America is betraying Ukraine once again. Chaos just erupted in the White House, and the US President Donald Trump is threatening Zelensky to either accept Putin's terms or be destroyed by Russia. America's handling of the war has become incoherent, inconsistent, and embarrassing on the global stage. And while Russia rejects every peace proposal offered, US officials are repeating Kremlin's talking points in what appears to be a major win for Russia. And even senior negotiators in Washington are openly citing Russian arguments as justification for Ukrainian territorial concessions. The Financial Times reported that Trump's latest meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky devolved into shouting matches. Trump pressured Zelensky to accept Putin's peace terms or face destruction, saying, and I quote, "If Putin wants it, he will destroy you." Trump got so frustrated during the meeting that he even threw Ukrainian battle maps aside. He ridiculed Ukrainian positions, saying he had no idea what these red lines mean, and accused Zelensky of fighting a losing battle. In a Fox interview, he said bluntly that Russia, quote-unquote, will take something, acknowledging that Moscow will keep part of Ukraine because it has quote-unquote one certain property. He said that both the sides should stop at the current battle lines, effectively endorsing the idea of freezing the war along the front. He reinforced that Russia already controls 78% of Donbas and forced Ukraine to accept that reality. And by doing that, he basically asked Ukraine to surrender entire Donbas, including Donetsk and Luhansk regions that have not yet been captured by Russia. Donald Trump repeated Putin's line that the invasion was not even a full-scale war and just a special military operation, and that Ukraine was already collapsing under it. On October 17th, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky visited Washington in an effort to persuade Donald Trump to approve a deal for Tomahawk cruise missiles. If these missiles would have been approved, Ukraine would have acquired the capability to strike targets about 1,600 to 2,500 kilometers deep inside Russia, where most of the Russian military assets are present. Key Russian cities like Moscow, St. Petersburg, and Kazan would have come within Ukrainian strike range. Ukraine could have gained a game-changing strategic advantage. These long-range precision weapons would have allowed Kyiv to strike deep into Russian territory with remarkable accuracy, targeting critical military infrastructure such as weapons production facilities, ammunition depots, and command centers. Beyond military sites, key components of Russia's economic and logistical networks like oil refineries, fuel storage depots, rail hubs, and bridges could have been disrupted, significantly hindering the Russian military's operational capabilities. Precision strikes on such targets would not only degrade Russia's ability to sustain frontline operations, but would also have forced a recalibration of their strategic deployments. So, in essence, the deployment of Tomahawk missiles could have provided Ukraine with a potent tool to disrupt Russia's war-fighting capacity far beyond the immediate battlefield. However, things took a sharp turn for Ukraine following a private phone call between Donald Trump and Putin 2 days before the meeting. According to reports, this call lasted unusually long and was described differently by Western and Russian sources. Western media suggested that Donald Trump threatened Putin, but a Russian version claimed that Putin warned Trump about crossing certain red lines. Soon afterward, the Tomahawk deal was abruptly cancelled, implying Putin's warning may have carried weight. According to reports, Putin bluntly told Donald Trump that supplying Tomahawks to Ukraine would permanently damage US-Russia relations. He reminded Donald Trump that Russia has studied Tomahawk missiles for decades and knows how to intercept them. Putin also made an offer to Donald Trump during this call that if war ended on Russia's terms, the US could reap major economic opportunities in post-war Russia, especially in the mining and energy. Although this has not yet been confirmed, but we have good reasons to believe so. Russia holds nearly every critical mineral the 21st century economy needs and wants new economic partners to reduce its dependence on China. For Trump, who promotes an America First policy and is eager to undercut China, this may have sounded appealing. At present, China is Russia's sole major buyer for oil, gas, and minerals, giving Beijing monopoly-like leverage. Putin, uncomfortable with this dependency, appears to seek limited re-engagement with the US to diversify partners. Thus, he hinted that if Trump helped end this war, war, American businesses close to Trump could profit from access to Russian markets and resources. And if this was not bad enough for Ukraine, also during this call, Putin slightly revised his territorial demands. Earlier, Russia demanded a freeze of current battle lines, effectively keeping occupied areas. But after the latest call, Putin reportedly offered a minor concession. But there is a catch. He would consider returning parts of Kherson and Zaporizhia to Ukraine in exchange for complete Russian control of Donetsk and Luhansk. And Donald Trump said that this was a compromise deal to Zelensky, urging him to accept it. But for Zelensky and Ukraine, this was unacceptable. The areas that Russia is demanding includes territories that are still fiercely defended and soaked in blood. Surrendering them without a fight would devastate Ukrainian morale and would be a political suicide. Kyiv sees Putin's proposal as a deliberate trap designed to fracture Ukrainian society by proposing terms that are impossible to accept. And the result of all of this is a complete breakdown of US's credibility. The world is watching the US waffle between Russian appeasement and inaction, while Ukraine continues to suffer. Allies are beginning to doubt America's reliability as a partner. Even if the administration claims to be managing a delicate balance, the perception abroad is one of weakness, confusion, and moral compromise. And it is becoming evident from what Steve Witkoff, the US envoy leading Russia-Ukraine negotiations, said about the 2022 Russian referendums in the occupied Ukrainian regions, which were staged under Russian military occupation, claiming those territories belong to Russia. These votes were widely condemned at the time by the UN and the US as illegal and coerced. Yet Steve Witkoff claimed Ukraine should give up those lands because they are now written into Russia's constitution. Zelensky responded firmly, saying Ukraine's position remains unchanged. It will not withdraw from Donbas or accept any Russian control over any region. He reportedly told Witkoff that citing illegal referendums and constitutional changes as justification for surrender is absurd, comparing it to Ukraine amending its own constitution to claim parts of Russia. Would they leave those territories then? Zelensky asked it rhetorically, calling Witkoff's reasoning non-functional. But this line of reasoning by Steve Witkoff has alarmed entire Europe and Ukraine, as this demonstrates a departure from long-standing US policy that Ukraine would not give up any land to Russia and that America would help Ukraine to get this territory back no matter what. Just 3 years ago, Washington condemned Russia's annexations and led global efforts to reject the legitimacy of those referendums. The United States once dismissed those same referendums as coerced at gunpoint and predetermined in Moscow. Even US Ambassador Linda Thompson-Greenfield told the UN in 2022 that Washington would never recognize any Russian seized territory as legitimate. But now, under Trump, the US is citing those referendums as a basis for negotiation, an astonishing 180-degree reversal. Under Donald Trump, America is effectively legitimizing territorial conquest by force, the very act that America said it would prevent it from happening at any cost. European officials present during the meeting also said that Trump spent much of his discussion with Zelensky lecturing him and repeating Russian talking points. Trump even suggested giving security guarantees to both Kyiv and Moscow, a confusing remark that left Ukrainian officials baffled. How absurd it is for the US to consider security guarantees for whom it calls the aggressor. Also, this exchange between Trump and Zelensky paints a picture that Trump increasingly sees Ukraine as losing the war and is therefore pressuring Kyiv to end the conflict quickly. So for Ukraine, the loss of US political backing and Tomahawk missiles is a major blow, and for Russia, the prospect of drawing the US into an economic arrangement while retaining key territories is a major victory.